Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live after. Was there a football game? I don't think there was a football game. I don't think the team in Los Angeles got the memo that there was a football game today. But we'll talk about it. Unfortunately, everything that went down. It's a frustrating time right now for sure. But thank you guys for tuning in and joining me as always are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing? How are you doing today? Excuse me.
Fucking sucks. That's how I feel today. About everything. The Eagles are the Eagles. The Chargers are the Chargers. And never believe in anything in sports that could happen positively again.
Brutal all around. I can't believe the two offenses today for your two teams showed up like this. Tyler, how are you doing today, man?
I'm gonna go do some shots for Herbert after this, or with him.
Everyone listening to this knows that I do not drink alcohol, but today is one of those days that really pushed me to my limits of potentially drinking alcohol. It was a rough day to watch. The game itself was bad. The referees were awful. The broadcasters were even worse. So it was a rough watch today.
Yep.
All righty. So let's dive into this. Why delay the inevitable, right? So I want to talk about our general takeaways from this performance by the Chargers. And I think I want to start off, if that's okay with you guys. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that Brandon Staley's personnel decisions are costing him wins. And this is something that we've really been talking about specifically for like the running back position, specifically for the tight end position. And Today it showed up again with the fucking offensive line. You choose Senio Clemente, who's been a dreadful offensive lineman for most of his career outside of 1 year in excuse me. Outside of 1 year in Houston or New Orleans, rather, he was pretty solid. And you drafted Brendan Hymus. So signing Michael Schofield to start Michael Schofield instead of Brendan Hymus, I understand. You think that Brendan Hymus isn't ready?
Right.
That's fine with me. Like, I understand you want to wait and you want to give Hymus all the time that he can handle to prepare. But you're starting Senio Clemente over him. Like, that was an awful, awful decision. And everybody today is like, how bad is Brendan Hymus in practice? That's not the right thing to be asking. The right thing to be asking is, why can't Brandon Staley make the right personnel decisions to help his team win? Senio Clemente, we haven't gotten the numbers yet, but I'm guessing there were at least 10 pressures by him. And the Chargers offense was barely on the field in the first half. So that personnel decision cost him. He said earlier this week that Braden Fajoko and Joe Gaziano had earned the right to be on the field more frequently because of how they played against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think I saw Gaziano like 3 times in this game. I didn't watch the last, 4 or 5 snaps. Just that happened just barely. But you have these 2 young defensive tackles who show out on Sunday Night Football, and you still go back to Jerry Tillery, who made a fucking ridiculous roughing the passer penalty again. And, he had a couple good time. There were a couple instances where he shot the gap and then missed the tackle. So, like, at least he's shooting the gap now. But you watched Joe Gaziano and Braden Fajoko have fantastic games against the Pittsburgh Steelers, granted against backup linemen. And then it's like, oh, well, let's just go back to what wasn't working with Jerry Tillery and company. So, and you can go to the cornerback position too. The Chargers are so thin at cornerback right now, and they haven't made any additions in that room because they have a fullback / 5th tight end and a 3rd quarterback and a 5th running back that are too important. So we can talk about the game, and we will. Yeah. But to me, the story of the day is that Brandon Staley's personnel decisions are costing him wins.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Arjun just sent us the early pass blocking grade for Clemente. Did you see what it was?
No.
Anybody want to guess what?
I got a new phone, so he probably didn't text me the right number.
So Clemente's current pass blocking grade,
33
Pro Football Focus, 0.
0. How many pressures?
0. Currently 5 pressures allowed, but beaten by the defender 4 additional times. God. So his pass block win rate is going to be awful.
And
but,
what's really annoying
0
for that instance? I guarantee you that all of those pressures that Clemente gave up were on designed deep shots. I guarantee
I'm sure
that's what's going to happen. I'm going to see on film tomorrow that it's going to be all deep shots and Clemente is giving up pressures left and right.
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, he single-handedly murdered one of their drives, and I mean, God bless the offense for trying to keep it together and keep, we got a first down. Just kidding, 3rd and 15. Got another first down. Okay, great, we're moving. And then, okay, it's 3rd and 2, whatever. It's like now it's 3rd and 7. I mean, he was just single-handedly killing them on that drive, and I'm sure, like, when you chart these pressures, I'll be very interested to see what you pick out because it's going to be bad. And even if it is single-digit pressures, the penalties or the other issues, that just adds on top of it. So if you tell me you had 10 bad plays, yeah, awful. Like you said, was one of my takeaways too. And we've really been talking about these questionable personnel decisions all year. Some of them very early, like, why are we cutting? We've talked about these players. But in this particular game, I'm going to try to focus on this game and not say, Brandon Faison, for example. But, where was Joe Gaziano? He had the best game of any interior defensive lineman last week and was arguably part of the reason they won.
Yep.
Where'd he go? Tillery looked great, didn't he? 4 running backs were active today. They didn't do jack shit. It's not like there was even a rotation. It was just kind of like Eckler mostly. For some reason, they'd have Bradwell out there a couple of times, and then Kelly would get a couple. He had a great hurdle. He did have a great hurdle. So that was fun. But then on top of the personal decisions, I'll talk about the offense later. But Brandon Staley, man, and maybe it's not all on him. Maybe it's all miscommunication. Maybe the players just flat out aren't executing. But Staley playing so light in the box that the Broncos basically said, "Okay, you have one guy in front of me, and we have 5. Let's run at you, touchdown." Or not having anybody near that screen on 3rd and 15 or whatever it was. I mean, the defense plays well in moments, but it just was not good in critical moments. On top of that, you have penalties. And if the Chargers didn't have the ball for most of that second half, I'm sure the Broncos would have scored more. And the defense just can't put away good teams, or really any team right now. The Bengals, with a much worse defensive roster, in my opinion, just put away the Steelers no problem with less talent. The defense can't tackle. Penalties as well. Penalties on either side. It's a real question mark right now. And I think when we revisit this game and the whole offseason or the whole year, we're going to be talking about poor coaching and poor personnel decisions. And that's really, really unfortunate with this new coaching staff.
Yeah, I think you could talk about a lot of things as to where to start with this game. Senio Clemente that was one of the funniest things I watched today. He was just getting beat on every pressure. It was just
and it wasn't like it was by Shelby wasn't playing in this game. Draymond Jones had like one good play. He was getting cooked by McTelvin Agim and some other defensive tackle that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
It was not pretty for the defense, but I'm gonna say the name that I feel like you guys aren't saying. It's Justin Herbert. To me, that's what this game was about. And I know he's getting pressured by Senio Clemente. I know he's getting pressured by other guys. But if we're going to talk about Justin Herbert having one of the best games we've ever seen a quarterback have last week, we also have to talk about him when he stinks. And to me, when you talk about the zone defense thing and giving him exotic looks, he struggled with that against Minnesota, struggled with that against New England, and he struggled again today. So to me, the drops are another conversation because, that just keeps on happening, and it shows no signs of slowing down. But to me, they lost this game because of Justin Herbert. We talked about the interceptions he threw. Justin Simmons should have had another one that was not counted on the stat sheet today. Just confusing ball placement. Didn't seem like he was ever on the right page with his receivers. And so I feel like we have to start there because it was just another situation where it's like, okay, TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick were banged up last week. Not saying that necessarily takes away from his game, but now you go against the defense that's a little bit more complete, has more, beef in the secondary and guys that they can, throw at you and cover your guys with. And I think that Justin Herbert really crumbled under the pressure today. So for me, there was a lot of, is Justin Herbert a top 5 quarterback last week? That was in your guys' show, when people were asking that. And to me, the thing that separates Justin Herbert from that top tier quarterbacks is the fact that you can throw pretty basic looks at him and he cannot adjust to it right now. Like Vic Fangio had that guy in Supermax prison today. So it was pretty bad. So until he is able to take what the defense gives him on a more consistent basis, this is kind of what the Chargers are going to be whenever they go up against a really good defense.
Yeah, and like the broadcast was showing a lot of looks, like they were doing the absolute best that they could to take away the deep passing game. And I know nobody wants to hear that because everybody just wants to blame Joe Lombardi. But you have to be efficient, you have to be in a rhythm, and he just for whatever reason was not. And it was you mentioned that Justin Simmons could have had another one. There were a couple other plays that I thought could have been interceptions too.
Oh, of course.
And he made some incredible throws like that. The scramble, the extension, and then throwing across the field to Jalen Guyton. Like, that's one of the best quarterback plays I've ever seen. And then what does he do? He throws an interception to Patrick Surtain 2 plays later on just a terrible, terrible throw. So, Arjun is mentioning right now in the chat, like the Broncos were down 3 offensive linemen. I think they lost a 4th. I think Dalton Risner left the game too. And they were down a bunch of defensive players too. Shelby Harris wasn't there. Of course, you don't really have a consistent edge rusher opposite of Bradley Chubb, who was making his return. They've had like 8 different linebackers play in this game in this season. Kareem Jackson wasn't playing today. So you can talk about like this being a good Broncos defense, but the opportunity was there. Justin Herbert just didn't make the plays that were necessary, and his ball placement was really inconsistent all day long.
So I was reading someone's DM and I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, the Chargers really need to dig deep and figure out what the best way to help Justin Herbert is against these good defenses.
Yes.
I thought they had the right idea because, as they did last week to great success, they let him throw. Like, it wasn't like a timid, hand the ball off a bunch of times game. They ran play action, which worked last week. And the Steelers blitzed 16 different times, or at least had 16 different blitzes from individual players, from the linebackers or safeties or DBs. So it's not like they didn't bring any heat last week. I don't remember the offense running it more than they should. I don't remember a wide receiver screen other than Herbert dumping it off to Allen in the flat. Whatever the issue is, whether it be playing Hymas, with Filer out, or drafting speed in the future, or going overboard at the tight ends in games moving forward, figure it out. Because, like you said, at the same time, it has to be said, Herbert's been playing awful football versus good defenses. And yes, that's a lot of it is on him. They need to find a way to make it work for him, because right now it's just not. Today was the worst example of it, in my opinion. I thought, honestly, like it was worse than the Baltimore game. I feel like I said that with the Minnesota Vikings game too. And yes, everyone failed around him. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. There are plenty of coaches, players, all those things that absolutely failed around Herbert. But he just... How many turnover-worthy plays did he have today? 6, 7, 8? Any of those numbers I would buy. He just couldn't process. He was flat-footed, and even if he ran it, he wasn't running well. So you have the pick 6 that was behind Eckler, then a ball behind Bradwell that he probably should have caught, but it still was dropped. End zone interception, really poor pocket presence, staring guys down, and it looked like in some instances, especially and it's very hard to tell, especially because they only show us one angle and it's not very good. But it felt like from the broadcast angle, they'd have Parham or Cook right in front of him, and he'd be staring with a clean pocket, and he wouldn't throw it, and he'd scramble or get sacked for 5 yards or whatever. It was really bad football from him today. So they need to go back to the drawing board. I think there are a mix of plays that could work. I think there's a mix of talent here that could work, but it's just not working against these good defenses. They have to sit down with him and figure out what the hell they need to do to help him out. Do we just run it 50 times? I don't know, because the combination of Herbert playing not well and them, I think, not helping him as best they could, it's not looking good.
Well, we could run it 50 times, but they haven't figured out which running backs they want to play. They drafted Larry Roundtree. He's a healthy scratch. They drafted Joshua Kelly. He's always a healthy scratch, except today. So I don't know if running 50 times is a good idea. No, I mean the thing with Herbert, and you talk about the Minnesota and New England games, like I thought this one was more on him in comparison to those games. Like you can talk about Joe Lombardi, anytime I ever say something negative about Justin Herbert on Twitter, it's just like, oh, it's actually Joe Lombardi. It's like, yeah, but today was more on him. Joe Lombardi didn't throw 7 interceptable passes at the end of the day. And to me, you could talk about the offensive issues being more exhaustive against Baltimore, against New England than they were today. Other people, simply didn't contribute or dropped the ball. The defense to me, I mean, particularly in the Baltimore game, was worse than it was today in a number of regards. So, like, I just, what is Herbert supposed to be? Like, to me, this is one of those games where, I mean, it was 14-7 for a very long time. I know the final score makes it look like a blowout, and it kind of got to that point. But the Chargers should have had, a tie game. It's many points, and they didn't. And so to me, that falls on Herbert. It falls on a bunch of other people as well. But yeah, I think that this game is fully deserving of Herbert slander.
Yeah, and it's really hard for me to like really criticize the plan of this game because they had like six plays until the end of the second quarter. So Joe Lombardi is definitely not perfect. We've talked about this. I feel like we've done a good job of being objective about Joe Lombardi. We just don't think he should be fired, but he definitely deserves some of the blame. And, to me, Justin Herbert just, for whatever reason, was not seeing the field very well today. There were a couple times where, he had a clean pocket and would try to run and then would get sacked. There were a couple times where he had a clean pocket and had people open and just couldn't see them. So for whatever reason, Justin Herbert just was not comfortable today. And yes, the Chargers did not do a good enough job supporting him. The offensive line, like I said, was not great. Michael Schofield had a couple bad plays. Senio Clemente had a couple bad plays. Even Corey Linsley had a pressure. As Arjun just pointed out, they had 3 drops, one of which led to a pick 6. So this offense has issues with consistency. And sure, some of that is coaching, but it's just players. Like, I know that Justin Herbert has a lot on his plate right now, but, we expect better of him. We expect him to be – he doesn't have to be an MVP level quarterback every single week, but the drop off from last week to this week, it can't keep happening. We see God tier quarterback against Cleveland, and then against Baltimore, he's really, really bad. And then he's great against the Eagles, and then he's bad against the Vikings, and then he's great against the Steelers, and then he's bad against the Broncos. So that's a real concern for me going forward. Just the lack of consistency in his decision making. But I do expect them to bounce back, right? Like, that's the thing that we've seen from this team, is that they continue to show us that they will bounce back. But this was such a winnable game. Like, this Broncos offense was not great by any means. You had Drew Lock you had Teddy Bridgewater get hurt and could barely move in the second half. Drew Lock gifted us an interception to Derwin James. So this was a very winnable game today, and it sucks. Like, this, now they're tied with the Broncos in the division. They should be tied with the Chiefs. Like, it's such an unfortunate loss today.
Yeah, and also to just say this about Lombardi and what the criticism would be is like, oh, well, he didn't take enough deep shots. Well, Herbert was fucking up.
He was under pressure all day.
Yeah, he was. Well, when he threw the ball deep, it wasn't great. And also, Senio Clemente was Senio Clemente. So therefore, you can't take too many deep shots. And actually, the offense looked better whenever they went to the quick passing game, to be honest, than this one. So, if we're going to talk about that conversation with Lombardi, like, I just thought out of all the losses this year that people want to pin on the Chargers offense, this was the one that was least on Lombardi and mostly on player execution.
Yeah, I think either this or Baltimore, I would chalk up to the games where I just thought, maybe Lombardi. I don't know. Arjun pointed out that so far the offensive line only gave up 11 pressures. It certainly felt like more than that. Arjun, if you're still listening, and I think you are, I'm curious how many pressures or sacks did Herbert technically allow, either through scrambles or holding the ball too long, whatever it was. I'm just curious because it felt like more than 11 pressures all game. And that number can change. That's not a definitive number, but it felt like more. So I'm curious how much they've pinned some of those pressures on or coverage, I guess. I think you can call it coverage too, but yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. The inconsistency is so tough because against the Steelers, again, they brought pressure 16 different times. So it's not like they weren't trying. And they were rotating quite a bit. They were rotating as much as they could. They did kind of a lot of everything that the Vikings did. And Herbert, again, now he did have Filer and the protection was better, but Herbert was going boom, 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 that read, boom, 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 that read. I mean, there was one play where, against the Steelers, where in half of a second, he goes from this side of the field to Eckler in the flat on a swing. No problem. Got him, no problem. Just flew right through his progressions, no problem. Knew he was matched up on a linebacker, no problem. And in this game, I think it was on 4th down or 3rd down, whatever it was, Eckler's wide open on a swing right over there, and he's like, Allen, please get open. And like Eckler's just like wide open over there. I just don't. How does that change? Again, the Steelers did bring pressure. Whether they got pressure is a different thing, but they brought pressure last week, and he was moving through his progressions no problem. Everything was crisp. Everything had a really, everything made sense. He moved from left to right, from 1 to 4, whatever it is, no problem. Today, probably the same amount of pressures. Just what happened? I don't get the inconsistency because it felt like everything was there for him.
Yeah, and I'll also just say in regards to like going through the reads and progressions and stuff, to me, this was the game where it wasn't so much that he was struggling to go through reads and progressions as much as he just wasn't seeing the field like entirely. Yeah. And I think that that's also evident on like the first Surtain interception. Like, I think he just flat out didn't see Patrick Surtain, and that's why he decided to throw the ball there. And so then Patrick Surtain picks it off, and it's like, okay, well, what was that throw? Like, to me, that was a symptomatic of what Herbert had kind of been throughout the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so frustrating to sit there and watch. Like, so Brooke and I went to Utah this week, and both of us are a little sick today. And Brooke fell asleep, and she wakes up and is like, "What the hell happened to Justin Herbert today?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like, it was just a frustrating day. It was, it sucks. Like, I have no understanding of why, he can't see the field in these situations or what, because it's just, we've seen him play so well in so many of these games. And then to see him come out and play like this today it was frustrating, man.
So what do you do? Like, what? It's so hard to figure out what they should do moving forward because, okay, let's get more to the tight ends. That's really easy. They've worked out really well. But, like, have they? Jared Cook's dropping passes. Donald Parham has played well when he gets the ball usually, but he had dropped last week. He has a couple untimely holding calls. Trey McKitty is not really involved in the passing game right now. Steven Anderson has kind of been phased out of the passing game for some reason.
And he had a great catch today.
He did. He had a great catch. He seems to always play well. And yes, Victor, I did talk about Rivers like this. We talked about everyone like this, and everyone says, "Oh, you can't criticize him. You can't criticize him." We criticize everyone as we see fit. If it's a little bit more on Herbert right now, fine, whatever. We criticize people equally, so put it to rest. Come on.
We just sucked his dick last week. Like, we were just like, this is Lamar Jackson, this is Michael Vick, this is a combination of that and Brett Favre. Like, we did that whole thing last week. So allow us to be a little bit angry that he played like shit today. Okay, like, this isn't that hard.
Yeah, and I mean, we had to sit here through a 5-11 bad River season. Like, we absolutely sat here and criticized him. As Michael points out, the truth could certainly meet in the middle. Like I said, I feel like we've been pretty objective about Joe Lombardi. He's not a great offensive coordinator. Again, he's been an offensive coordinator for like 25 games. We're just willing to let this play out. Like, I think people who are asking for coaches to be fired right now, and this goes for Brandon Staley too. I had at least 10 people say that Brandon Staley should be fired after today. Like, they're all first-year coaches. Like, this is a very young coaching staff, and you can look at Justin Herbert's inconsistent play against veteran coaching staffs. You can look at the coaching staff being outperformed by every single veteran coaching staff that they come up against, except for the Steelers. And it certainly is a concern. We figured from the start that there would be growing pains this year. We didn't think that they would last until week 12. We didn't think that this team would still be trying to figure out which running back to play and which offensive lineman to play in week 12. But unfortunately, this coaching staff they're just going through the growing pains right now. Like, at the bottom of the baseline, like, that's the concern right now, is that this coaching staff, they adjust well from game to game, but they don't adjust well in the game. Tyler mentioned the light box thing. Like, you should look at Teddy Bridgewater on one leg and completely load the box and stop Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. And it was still like, well, we're not going to let them beat us over the top. They can't. They have 4 backup offensive linemen just like you do. They don't have a good quarterback, unlike you do. So the lack of adjustments in game are another issue from both Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley. Like, if you want to talk about them in that regard, I think that is a very fair criticism. They make good adjustments from game to game. In-game adjustments are basically non-existent at this point.
Yeah, and also just say this, like, I mean, I watched the Justin Jones press conference, and like he got up there and was like, hey, our plan for Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams today is to cage them between the tackles, and sort of box them in, and they didn't do that for large stretches of this game. Like, I'm not, obviously part of that is personnel and the fact that they don't have very good run defense, but like it just seemed like the coaching staff went away from maybe what the players thought this game would kind of be at points. So I thought that was just perplexing, especially because they were going between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock and then back to Teddy Bridgewater on one leg. Like, this is a game they had to win. Like, that should have been enough, and it just wasn't.
Yeah. Someone said the run defense stepped in the second half, and they did, except for moments where they absolutely sucked. Like, I don't understand. Like, down to down for the most part, they played pretty well. And then there's just a couple of times today where it felt like they thought the play was over, and then Bridgewater would get that touchdown, or they thought the play was over, and then Javonte Williams would get 10 more yards. Like, I don't know. It was just a weird game.
That first Teddy Bridgewater,
and also, I was just gonna say, like, people were like, "Oh, well, the run defense was good last week, so what was different this week?" And people want to go ahead and blame Jerry Tillery. I'll actually defend Jerry Tillery a little bit. Like, man, they were up, 10 or 14 points on the Steelers for most of the second half. Like, that's why the Steelers didn't run the ball very well. Right. In addition to guys stepping up, but when you start down 14. It makes it a lot easier for them to run the ball. Like, at the end of the day, when you spot them that many points, and have Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams going crazy. So, yeah, I mean, they were the 32nd ranked run defense going into Pittsburgh. They're the 32nd ranked run defense coming out of Denver, like, ultimately. So, yes, there's been improvements here and there. Obviously, having Justin Jones back has helped, but then they don't have Linval Joseph today. And then, it just kind of craters around them. So, and they've always been a bad tackling team this season, unfortunately. So that's just the reality I have to live with. So I don't know. Like, yeah, they did some things last week that were better, but ultimately it was just the offense being, immensely better than Pittsburgh for a lot of that game until the defense collapsed in the fourth quarter, and then it became sort of a closer one. But that was sort of the reason that they were able to limit Pittsburgh last week, as opposed to a massive structural change. Like that game is not something that resets what this run defense really is.
Yeah, and that's what I said, leading up into this game is that, I wasn't crazy concerned about the Pittsburgh rushing attack because I knew that they want to pass the ball, man. They don't want to be a rushing attack first offense. Like, they want to throw the ball and let Big Ben do his thing. So, the Broncos were going to live and die by the run. And I felt like the run defense was okay at moments. The third quarter in particular, they stepped up and got a couple 3-and-outs that they really needed. But it's just in the situational instances, like Tyler was talking about, where it's 3rd and goal from the 9-yard line, and Denver runs a fucking draw play, and you give it up for a touchdown. Like, it's just the situational football for this defense right now is not very good. The Broncos are in 3rd and 10. They have a quarterback who cannot move. Everybody, like, I knew that they were going to run a screen. And what do? They run a screen and it goes for 18 yards. And there's no one inside.
Nobody.
So the situational football for this defense is just, it's not great. And some of that is young players, right? Some of that is playing without, your top corner or your top safety on occasion, or, your linebacker situation. Frankly, Drew Tranquill has not been very good the last couple of weeks. Just going to say that one. But it's just the situational football for this defense has not been great. And it cost them today when they needed them most to step up. And it's like Derwin James, Kaiser White, Nasir Adderley, and Joey Bosa. And then, frankly, that's it. Like, Justin Jones has moments, but this defensive roster is kind of, playing themselves out of jobs right now.
Curious what they do moving forward. I think someone posted today that the Chargers have the second youngest roster on defense right now in terms of snaps played, or the percent of snaps played by rookies or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so, what do you do moving forward? Like, you want to see that growth into next year, and some of it will. Like, Tavon Campbell probably will get better. Like, he was better to begin the year. Asante Samuel Jr. just being on the field will make them better.
Sure.
But, like, do you have the room next year to wait this long? Because if it's a personnel problem, and Staley doesn't have his personnel right now, it's like you can't wait. You have to go get your veterans, honestly. And I'm not saying that's Casey Hayward. Don't go get him or whatever, but you got to do something. Like if you're not willing to wait, and maybe you can't for these guys to develop next year because you want to go all in, you got to probably spend some money on some veteran defensive players. Cough Hassan Reddick. Although that wasn't the issue today.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's completely fair. Like, part of it is that they're young on defense, but like, honestly, I mean, in comparison to what we saw last year, and remember, this is partially Staley not having the personnel and all that. Like, this is a lot of what we saw last year with missed tackles, and bad run defense. Like, the run defense situation is actually just somehow worse. But I mean, we saw some of the same stuff with some of the same players. So. I don't know. Like at this point, and I mean they're probably going to get younger in some sense, which is potentially a good thing. Like I mean because Chris Harris is going to be gone, presumably, and they'll make some other moves. Who knows if Linval Joseph is back? In addition to another, all the other free agents they have, but like. If you're just talking about like large scale change, it's hard to see it because it's like, well, Jerry Tillery's still going to be under contract. And you still have a lot of these Kenneth Murray still under contract, Drew Tranquil, I mean, like same thing with a lot of these players who are going to be back next year. So I think you definitely want to add some guys and knock some guys down the depth chart. But at the same time, it's like, they're going to be cooking with a lot of the same ingredients, whether we want to admit that or not. So at some point, I think it's about the use of them. And improving where you can in the margins.
Yeah, like they'll improve next year. Like it's only natural that like they have potentially $80 million in cap space. They have 10 draft picks, so they'll improve, right? And like this team could still make the playoffs. Like they're still very much in the playoff picture, and we're very frustrated right now just because of the lack of consistency. But something that Arjun has kind of always pointed out is that good teams cover. Good teams are consistent, and this team is not in that realm right now. They're just not consistent week to week, and they could still make the playoffs for sure. I would have a tough time, imagining that they make a run in the playoffs at all. But with the AFC being as wide open as it is, they're still in the playoff picture. But it's just so frustrating that in week 12 of the season, we're still having these consistency issues. It's just that it's pivoted from illegal formations to not reading the defense and not making in-game adjustments and things like that.
I mean, the game versus the Bengals is arguably the season next week. Like if you fall to 6-6, and then you have a lost tiebreaker against Denver, and you have a lost tiebreaker against the Ravens, and you have a lost tiebreaker then adding up, like at that point, I'm not going to say the Chargers are done because the AFC is the AFC at this point, but like. I guess this game is sort of the game that makes me go, okay, yeah, the Chargers can be a playoff team. So what? Okay, so they can get shredded on by Jonathan Taylor because he would just absolutely decimate them. Derrick Henry's coming back. He would absolutely decimate them. Like, yeah, I want to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. It would be fun, but they're not playing like a playoff team right now, and they haven't been playing like a playoff team for a month and a half.
Yeah. I don't know, with all this execution issues and, Eckler talking about how after week 4, they were installing brand new plays or having to install new plays because they weren't caught up, and the way the defense's issues and the drops and everything, they have to revamp next preseason, right? In the next preseason, whether it's just playing some guys in games or not putting the special teams on the field during training camp for like 80% of the snaps or the time that you're there, which was really weird. I sort of understand it. But then today, Hopkins missed a field goal, but like special teams isn't on the field more than offense and defense. And so while I get the priority, I guess they took everything away from the offensive defense, not able to get onto the field and gel, work together, install plays, whatever it was. They have to redo things next year. I don't want to talk about next year yet, but like you said, the game next week is kind of the season, and I don't have any faith that this defense is going to stop the Bengals at all.
Yeah, especially without Asante Samuel Jr., it's going to be tough.
Granted,
today the receivers for the Broncos weren't like the reason that we lost. Like Tim Patrick had a couple good plays, Sutton had a couple good grabs. I think Judy only had like 2 catches. I don't even think Judy had that many. So it was just the situational instances. There's like I don't want to talk about next year either. And people keep asking me when I'm going to start watching draft film, and I frankly don't have the time right now. Like I'm just not there yet. So I think this team could still, it's all about getting hot at the right time, and we keep on saying that. We keep on expecting the drops to keep going back to normal, but I strangely, like I said, I feel like they'll bounce back because we've seen this team do that and get again, we'll kind of dive into the Bengals later on in the week, but all right, I want to talk about something too that I noticed today. I think Kenneth Murray at this point is a backup edge player, and like that's it.
I believe you, and sure, why not? Like, I mean,
I genuinely like. Someone let me know in the chat. I do not remember seeing him as an off-ball linebacker at all in this game. Like maybe a couple snaps.
I mean, I don't really remember him that much either. I mean, I think the coaching staff is trying to phase him out because he's been playing bad and using him as an edge maybe when they have to in a pinch, but it's not surprising to me that his snaps isn't going down because he hasn't been playing well. No, the alternative point to that is that Tranquil didn't play well either. But I mean, Kaiser is their only good linebacker right now. And so it kind of makes it hard to like play defense when you have one good linebacker and a secondary in shambles and a bad defensive line. Like that's the team right now. So I mean, I don't think Kenneth Murray. I mean, honestly, if he was playing more snaps, it would probably be worse. So him playing 10 snaps or whatever is fine with me because he hasn't shown that he deserves to be on the field like other first-round picks on the defense.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat right now. Someone asked what pick Murray was. I think he was 23rd, right? They moved up for him in 23rd.
Yeah.
Shoot, what was the other one?
I mean, while we're at it, like Jerry Tillery and Tavon Campbell just get paid to do cardio every week, and I think it's fun. Like if I was them, I'd be super amped because I'm getting an NFL salary and I just get to do stupid things all game. Like I get exercise. Yeah. Like I mean, that's kind of the life to live.
But that's what I'm saying. Like with the personnel decisions, right? Like we're seeing Kenneth Murray get phased out. Like Chris Harris is playing, a significantly smaller amount of snaps than a few weeks ago. But then Tillery comes back, and I'm assuming that his snap chart is going to be like 75% or 80% of the snaps. Tavon Campbell, like they haven't added a corner like to even challenge somebody, like or even bring in a body. Like they didn't even sign Keandre Thomas to the active roster. He was just elevated because of COVID. Like it was just a little window into window of opportunity for him because the Chargers are going through a COVID outbreak. So the personnel decisions right here with the defense doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why can you phase out Murray, who's a former first-round pick, but you can't phase out Tillery, who's a former first-round pick? And I would argue that Tillery and Murray are playing equally as bad.
Yeah, and you also know what you have in Tillery at this point. I think Murray, he's at a year and a half right now. Like, and he's been injured or whatever. Like, you could give him a shot and let him run and see what you have for the rest of the year, and then make the decision to phase him out. But nope. And then that just makes me question what happens next year. Like I say, they bring in a nice 4th round pick to compete for somebody, and he looks really good, and he probably could play. But then what are they going to do? Sign another veteran to play over him, like Hymus right now? Like, okay, so you talk about the draft next year and getting Staley's guys. I mean, whose guy is Hymus at this point? Is it Telesco's? I think it's a good pick. Whoever's guy it was, I think it's a good pick. Whoever they're making the decisions to override him being on the field. And I think someone pointed out in the chat that Staley said that Hymus is going to play when he's ready. Is Calamete ready? Like, is he ready? When's he going to be ready? If Calamete is ready,
I'm not ready to watch Calamete. So I mean, in that sense,
no,
I don't care if Hymus is ready or not. Just put him on the field, or I'm gonna need to take Advil PM before I watch next game.
Yeah, well, and we were all upset about the game not being flexed to Sunday Night Football, and thank God it's not.
Yeah, we got to eat shit on that.
Although they might have won.
Maybe they would have won, but this team deserves to never play in primetime again after that game. They were just horrendous. Horrendous.
Yeah. I know why that they're going with Clemente, right? Like it was the same reason why they went with Schofield, right? Like they want the experience. Experience doesn't matter for shit if you're an awful fucking football player. Like, come on now. Like, I don't understand how you could, like, everybody keeps on telling me because, well, you're not at practice. I don't fucking care. Hymas was really good in the preseason. We all heard from all of the reporters that he was good. I saw with my own eyes at training camp that he was good. There is no fucking way that Senor Clemente is better than Brendan Hymas at this point. Michael Schofield, I can kind of understand. But what I just watched from Senor Clemente, like, no fucking way is he better than Brendan Hymas at this point.
Although maybe Clemente gets to go against Tillery in camp or in practice, and maybe he's just bulldozing guys and looks really good. Like, how do you not let him start after that week of practice?
I mean, Clemente probably looks like Zach Martin out there against Tillery.
Oh my gosh, that was funny. I needed that laugh. Thank you guys. That was great. All right, let's talk about some studs and duds because I do think we'll move on to kind of wrap this show up today. I think there obviously were some players that did play well. I'm going to take the easy layup. It's Derwin James, stud of the day for me. That guy was just flying around all over the place. Had a couple great tackles for loss. The interception was kind of a gift, but clutch players show up in clutch moments, and the Chargers needed that interception pretty desperately. So again, taking the easy layup, Derwin James, stud of the day.
All right, it's between me and Alex to figure out one other player who was good today. I mean, I think Rashawn Slater only had one pressure, right? I'm sure he was good. Like, I'm pretty sure he was good.
It. He had a holding call, which was bullshit, but yeah.
So I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to the Chargers-Broncos box score to see if maybe there's something I missed, in terms of a guy who really
Kaiser White had moments.
Keenan Allen,
kind of,
maybe, kind of.
Long
Eckler
snapper
touchdown.
Long snapper was the stud.
Joshua Kelly, fun hurdle.
He had another good run too.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good today. And my fucking suffering. Holy shit, this game was terrible.
Who else?
Oh my gosh.
I mean Tylon didn't have a punt blocked.
He looked a little slow on the punts today, though. I mean, I don't know if I could call
He did.
Yeah, he looked a little slow today, so I don't know. I love Tai Long, but yeah, he's somewhere in between a stud and a dud.
All right, so that's the state of today's game. Jalen Guyton had a really good play. Like, that play should not have been converted, and he had a really good play.
He had another catch where he didn't drop the ball on like a bullet pass. Like he was kind of freaky today. He looked good.
Yeah.
Hey, Easton Stick held the shit out of the clipboard today. God, great.
He probably dropped it. Like, come on.
All right. Let's talk about the. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I can't find any more fucking studs today. Stud was whoever watched the Packers-Rams game, probably.
I mean, Eckler outside of the drops. I think if Eckler hadn't dropped that one, I probably would have said him too, because he's pretty good. All right, let's talk about the duds. I'll let you guys go first because I think everybody kind of knows who I would say. But if one of you wants to rail on Senor Clemente again, go for it.
I mean, can it kind of be everyone? Like, I mean,
sure.
I don't think it's too far to say that. Like, I mean, it's kind of everyone on defense. Like, Jerry Tillery was bad. Tavon Campbell got cooked. Like, ever since I gave Tavon Campbell my stud of the game, he's just been shit. Jerry Tillery, very bad. Late hit again because he's slow as a sloth. Yeah, I mean, you could go with a lot of duds. Kenneth Murray. I mean, I could just read you the box score and all the guys that are on it and just go, okay. Yeah, I mean, I really could read you everyone other than Derwin James and maybe Kaiser. Christian Covington, Devon Campbell, Drew Tranquil, Michael Davis, Jerry Tillery, Uchenna Nwosu, Fahoko Harris Murray. I think those are my defensive duds. And then offensive duds is pretty much everyone except Alan Eckler. Okay, those are my duds of the day.
Very nice. Since you've already covered everyone, I'm going to say the dud of the day is the oblong shape of a football. For whatever reason, that ball decided to come out of Teddy Bridgewater's hand and bounce forward for 4 fucking yards and get them a first down, which honestly probably changed the game in and of itself. Like it was a fumble and it did, but it went forward. They picked up a first down. It should have been a 4th down and a punt. Yay, Joey Bosa strip sack. Woohoo. Instead, they get a first down and then they go on to drive and score a touchdown. That kind of did change the game. So if Alex has already taken everyone but a certain lineman, but I'm taking the shape of a football.
My understanding of that rule is that you can't make forward progress on a fumble.
And where the Chargers fans know that, like, I'm pretty sure it was because of the Chargers and the holy roller, whatever it's called. Yeah, holy roller. So I don't know. All right, Steven, let's hear it.
I mean, I already railed on Daniel Calmente for a while. What I'm gonna say here is that the Chargers are now 7-16 in Denver since 2000, and 4 of those wins came during the prime Rivers and LT years from 2006 to 2010. So for whatever reason, this team just cannot win at Denver, and the weirdest shit happens. You know, the fumble. Dustin Hopkins didn't even miss. The man kicked a fucking frisbee as opposed to a football. Like, Dustin Hopkins is a really good kicker, and that man kicked the football and it was going horizontally. So the weirdest shit happened today. I don't know what the hell was going on with this team. I think a lot of this falls on the coaching staff, frankly. They simply did not really seem prepared. Like, every single time that the Broncos threw pressure at the Chargers offensive line, it seemed to hit. Right. And like, that's on coaching. Like, you have to have a better protection plan. And so, hey guys, look, I just criticized Joe Lombardi. Oh my goodness. So to me, like, you know, I'll rail on Senor Clemente if people want me to do that again. But to me, the coaching staff it was not good enough today on both sides of the football.
No, it wasn't. Alex, next time you do that, have your hands a little higher.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you should do an all-22 offensive line breakdown again, but just zoom in on Senio Clemente and just
please
watch
don't.
watch him just for every minute he was on the field. I think that's what you should do this week.
Yeah. You know, I'll definitely look at the offensive line tape, and you know, we'll see what happens. I know that they were chipping, like they showed a few times that they were chipping, but frankly, it's all interior pressure. And like I said a couple weeks ago, you can't chip interior pressure. Like, you just have to have the guys to hold up. You can slide protection and things like that. But your veteran interior offensive lineman can't be getting beat by McTelvin Agim, who I saw before today had played 40 snaps, and he looked like Aaron fucking Donald out there. So, you know, we kind of railed on Justin Herbert today, but the man was under pressure all game long, and a lot of that is on the coaching staff. Like, Clemente shouldn't have been in there. They should have had a better plan. So it was just a bad look today from the offensive line. It honestly felt like last year's offensive line. It really did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so angry that I didn't even realize till just now that Tyler made a masturbation joke. I mean, I didn't even understand that until just now. That's how angry
the crickets were really disappointing on that one.
Yeah, I mean, credit to you for a good joke, but I'm looking at this box score and it's just no what?
Only 6.5 yards per punt return, guys. There's a stud.
Hey,
whoever stopped that.
Build the statue for 6.5 yards per punt return.
Honestly, like, the punt and return unit probably move up a couple spots in their DVOA unit.
Thank goodness.
Probably.
But then you have the missed field goal, so you know, all bounces out.
I don't understand how that was like. How do you physically take a ball like this and have it go like this, without it being blocked? It wasn't even like diagonal. It was just like this the whole time.
I don't even.
And the hold seemed fine.
I I don't even think it was windy there either. Like
They said it was windy at one point.
They said it was kind of windy in the third quarter.
It didn't seem as windy.
Yeah, I mean, the other kicker made all his extra points, so I don't know. Yeah.
Why do you think they went for 2?
I don't know. That was weird. You're down by 14.
Who gave a shit at that fucking point? I mean, like, who cares? Just
my last brain cell did. Honestly, it was like, why?
Yeah, like, yeah, there were a lot of questionable calls today, but yeah, I don't know. Going for 2, just confusing all the way through this one. 4th down calls that were weird. I don't know. Like, just.
It was a frustrating day. The 3 of us were joking. For those who have been listening to the podcast for quite a while, the last time that the Chargers played in Denver, we recorded like a really good episode.
Oh my
I feel like,
gosh!
But one of us forgot to hit the record button, and we didn't notice until until after we were done recording.
Yeah.
So, but for whatever reason, man, this game in Denver just always gives the Charge problem.
I'm just so fucking pissed. This was the Surtain game. Why did it have to be this one? Why?
Yeah.
Like, I call it CB1 and he plays like CB1 and then fuck.
Alex, what was your record this week in picks?
Go fuck yourself. I'm not even updating the picks. I'm so mad. I'm gonna protest updating them today.
Man,
I gave you the open layup, man. Oh, I didn't forget about that.
Oh, I know you didn't forget about that, and I know that you know that I know I didn't forget about it. So fuck off.
Oh man,
rough week.
It was a good week.
I take it. Did you go 3-0, Tyler?
Yes, and Alex, no, you didn't win 1. You won 0. Okay.
Oh
no.
You went full Eli Manning.
Nice, very nice.
The FCC
so did Daniel Jones as he beat the Eagles today.
Pissed.
Oh yeah, man, that was a rough day for Alex's teams and his picks, man. Brutal.
At least Ohio State
0-5 today.
At least Ohio State lost. I mean that was fun.
That's
but
true.
other than that,
Yeah.
Hey, and Tyler might get more into USC now that they have Lincoln Riley.
Probably not. I mean, if they're good, great, but I'll be like, woohoo, and then I won't watch a game.
There you go. All right. We'll take a couple questions now, guys. So if you haven't asked them, please do so, and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll just kind of scroll through, and then obviously feel free to use the super chat feature if you feel so inclined. Moses pointed out that we didn't even challenge Surtain that much. 1 tip pass and 1 underthrown ball. They went at him with Palmer a couple of times, but I feel like for the most part, they were trying to go after Kenny Young and Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like that. And it's a bummer that the times they went after Surtain, it was like horrible. It wasn't even like a decent play. It was like awful decision to throw to Cook, and then a ball behind Eckler, and he drops it, and it gets a pick 6. But yeah, it seemed like they went against other guys. It seemed like early on that Fuller and whoever else were getting picked on, but I don't know, didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they challenged Surtain much either. They were clearly kind of going after Kyle Fuller and the other guys. Kind of didn't matter. They throw it at this one, though, because the passing offense was just terrible.
Yeah.
A couple of people have asked, why doesn't he get as much blame as Lombardi? I think if you're talking about just defense in general, he doesn't call the plays, but I mean, should he get more flack because of the way the secondary looks? On one hand, I think Davis sort of improved, and then James looks great. Santos Samuel Jr. looks legit, but then like Campbell's taking a step back. Adderley looks better too. So I don't know. He doesn't call the plays though, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this is the same conversation I have with Eagles fans who blame what was I going to say? Who blames Shane Steichen as opposed to Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni is the one who calls the plays on offense. So, I mean, you could talk about certain things that maybe Ronaldo Hill is doing, but at the end of the day, like, falls on the play caller, and Brandon Staley's the play caller until he says he's not anymore. So
yeah, we don't really know how much Ronaldo Hill is involved. Like, I think he's essentially just another secondary coach at this point, but I don't know. A bunch of people expressing frustration about Tom Telesco today, and I totally understand, but we all need to come to grips with the fact that when you hit on a franchise quarterback, that prolongs your career as a general manager for multiple years. So I understand the frustration. Tom Telesco's not going anywhere.
Probably not.
Yeah, and for better or worse, I feel like there was, at least in the off season, a good marriage of Telesco and Staley. It seemed like they got, Staley wanted more linemen. They got more linemen. They kind of, in general, operated the best way they could. Yeah, he's sticking around. He's at least going to stick around through the all-in year and probably the year after. Probably Herbert's rookie contract and Staley's contract. Probably stick around with that. If for some reason Staley gets fired, does not see a second contract, Telesco is definitely going. I know that seems like you've said that a couple of times, but I think he's definitely going.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing also is, like, I think you can blame Telesco for a lot of things, but if we're going to talk about, like, the Anthony Lynn drafts, like, he's sort of in the middle right now between, we talk about Kenneth Murray, we talk about Jerry Tillery. Like, yeah, that falls on Telesco because, I mean, he is the guy who had the final shot in that one, but also those guys are clearly not being utilized by the new coaching staff who didn't want those players that Anthony Lynn and Tom Telesco picked. So I think they're just in this weird transitionary kind of stage between the two administrations. I think Telesco deserved to be fired when Anthony Lynn was fired. He wasn't. I think he is responsible for a great deal of this team's problems. I mean, if you're looking through the years and some of the picks that haven't panned out, Arjun has talked at depth about, his hit rate on picks and stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, like these kind of games in particular where Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater are, alternating between each other getting hurt and sucking and, a very beatable Broncos team, like you can screw Tom Telesco all you want, but they still very much should have won this game regardless of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, like I was on board with Telesco getting fired with Anthony Lynn when they decided that they were going to bring him back. Like I felt like it was pretty clear that his future was going to be tied with Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley. So,
yeah,
it all kind of depends on those two. As long as Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley are working well together, which so far it seems like they are, then Tom Telesco is going to stick around. Interesting question here from Holden Sanchez. Holden going to the Giants game, courtesy of one of our giveaways. So shout out to Holden. He wants to know what fixes the offense. Tyler, I'll start with you. What do you think on this one?
Aside from just play better, execute better, and that is part of it. Like you stop dropping 5 balls a game, and the offense will look better. Like that's kind of easy. But in whatever way they need to get into some sort of rhythm where they have the opportunity to set things up. I mean, part of what Lombardi did last week against the Steelers is that all year, that signature deep shot that they've had, whether they've done it out of play action or off that RPO on the move, they've been setting it up different ways. And the Steelers played that same look off of play action that they did against the Vikings. They played that in such a way that it was basically a perfect setup because of everything Lombardi had shown them on tape all year, particularly against the Eagles, with the with Palmer in motion, with Roberts getting the handoff, with the slide route to Anderson, with the deep ball to Williams, and everything that the Steelers did on that particular play. You saw them going, signaling, pushing, pointing, do this, do that. And what did they do after playing all deep? Lombardi, in that exact moment, after showing something all year that was different, called a screen pass to Parham that he had not called out of the same look. Got a screen pass to Parham, and it got 12 yards or whatever, and nobody on the Steelers is ready for that. And that's because they're able to set up things either over a long period of time or in game like they did against the Eagles with that deep shot to Williams. I think they just have to sustain more drives. And so better blocking, better execution, Herbert actually hitting his passes, all these certain just guys being healthy. I think that'll eventually set him into a rhythm because I think some of what he does, and offense in general, requires rhythm. And right now they're just not in a rhythm. They can't get into that rhythm for whatever reason. And so it's not clicking, because when they're in a rhythm, they have momentum, things absolutely work for them. We've seen that 2 out of 4 games since the bye. Unfortunately, the other 2, not very good. So if they can get into a rhythm, I think they can be a good offense. I think, like, personally, I really do believe the calls are there. And I think the team is talented enough to make this sort of work, but they have to stay in a rhythm. So block better, execute better, catch the fucking football, for God's sake. And I think things will start to just look better. Because honestly, even though the Steelers are missing a bunch of players on defense, I don't think anyone was stopping Herbert that day because they were in that rhythm and because Herbert was just on. Like, yeah, if TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, whatever, if they were there, it may have been more difficult. Maybe they only scored 34, but for the most part, they weren't stopping them. There was no way Herbert was getting beat that day because they were in a perfect rhythm. And so if they can do that, I think they'll be okay.
I mean, I think it's also just about being adaptable at this point. Like, at this point, if Senio Clemente is going to start next week, which
Good
is
God.
still very possible,
It's going to happen.
and you're gonna, and you have Schofield and you have Storm Norton still, and it's going to be the Bengals defense, who's been playing fairly well, coming to town. Like, I think at that point, like, you have to be adaptable. Like, I posted this on Twitter today. Like, the best Chargers offense that we saw today was whenever they were going to the quick passing game. And I think that they probably have to do that next week and just try to be in a rhythm with that. Obviously, reduce the number of drops, all that, have a better Herbert game. We could talk about the obvious stuff, but like, I think that Lombardi kind of needs to coach like Lombardi because of all the things that are happening on offense right now. And so I don't know. I think you could pick a lot of things, but at this point, I think it's just about being adaptable and making the right adjustments. Like, also, if something like Senio Clemente happens, like, maybe his leash should be shorter and you should put Brendan Hymas into the game. Maybe it would have saved them today. I don't know. Probably not, but still, like, I think that there's just things that you need to do in game to adjust better. I think there's things you need to do prior to the game to adjust better, but at this point, like, the Chargers offense is hurting right now, partially because of all the injuries they have. And I think that Lombardi and Herbert, to some extent, need to play around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say something that a lot of people will hate. They need to run the ball more. Like, they refuse to run the ball between the 20s, and then when they get in the red zone, it's like, oh shit, we got to run the ball again because the field's condensed. So the run game didn't work great today, but I still felt like they were getting 4 or 5 yards a pop, and it was like, oh shit, we take a sack. All right, let's run the ball. Let's get back into third and manageable. Oh shit, we had an incomplete pass. Okay, we're gonna run the ball now. So I understand the roster issues at this point. You don't have a consistent running back too. But even with Matt Filer out, the Chargers run game was still relatively consistent. So to me, I'm not saying full 50-50 split. I'm not calling for Andy Lynn to come back to bring, establish the run back, establish the run mentality back to this team. But like, just give me like a little 5% more of the run game. And that can come in a variety of ways, right? Like involving Andre Roberts, involving Justin Herbert. Like, I think part of the reason why they're so inefficient at times is because they're way too reliant on Justin Herbert. So I know that they averaged 2 yards a carry with Austin Eckler today or whatever, but for the most part, the running game looked pretty good today.
Yeah, I feel like if you look at the film and the way things were called, like running out of the end zone, whatever it was, that's going to contribute. Having to go on 4th and 2 or 3rd and 2, whatever it was, that's going to contribute to things not looking that great. I did think the run game looked okay, at least after the first quarter, maybe into the second half. Like, it looked like 3-4 yards per carry. But then they had 4 running backs active today, and Kelly ran the ball once, and that was it after Eckler. Like, I mean, I don't know. That confuses me because it seemed like they were setting themselves up to be like, listen, Herbert is struggling versus these defenses right now. We're in Mile High. We could gas the offense or the defense, and they ran it once with Kelly, and that was it. So again, another personnel thing. But yeah, run the ball more. I think they should. Someone said they run the ball way too much on first down. They only run it on first down like 38% of the time. The other 62% is passing. So they could run it more. And yes, I'm a complete nerd for having that stat ready.
Well done. Well done. All right. Any other questions that you guys see or saw that you want to talk about?
I mean, record prediction after today. Like, what is the expectation for the rest of the year? I guess we could wait. It's very reactionary right now. Depends on
if you're
health.
just
And
looking at the teams that are in front of them, like I don't see really how they beat the Bengals next week. They play the Chiefs again. Maybe they can win that one. But the Chiefs look better. 9-8.
what are they right now?
6-5.
6-5.
6-5.
I mean,
I just don't see how they
look,
lose 3 more games.
Okay, Bengals, Chiefs, and I don't know. Name another team on the schedule. I mean, they shouldn't have lost to the Broncos today.
Giants,
They sh-
Texans.
They shouldn't have lost to the Vikings. They shouldn't have lost to the Patriots, but they did. So like to me at this point, you can't look at any game on their schedule except maybe the Texans game and say that they're definitely not losing to that team at this point. So can go 10-7, can go 9-8. That's what I'm seeing for them right now.
I will go. I mean, I guess 10-7. I just like there is a weird magic about at Denver that I think changes when you play at home. I'm hoping by that point they're healthier, like with Filer. But then again, the Denver Broncos will probably be healthier too, so that doesn't help. They'll probably have a quarterback who has 2 legs this game or that next game. The Chiefs is really the toss-up. Like, do I think they could beat them, especially because they're playing at home? Sure. I mean, they did. And the Chiefs, for all they have, figured out, the way they scored 19 points against the Dallas defense, and the Raiders just roasted them for 30-something. So I still think they're pretty vulnerable, even with Chris. Now, if Senio Clemente is still playing and Chris Jones is on the interior still, I have some. He's going to set a record.
I have some reservations.
If Chris Jones goes up against Senio Clemente for an entire game, I think that might break me. Like, I think that literally might send me over the edge with the Chargers.
That would be. I mean, that would be a massive disappointment. And at that point, if he's still playing, and nobody else is still hurt, other than Filer, I would have serious concerns. Like, I would have some very Lynn concerns about this staff, about Brandon Staley, which I don't really have right now. But if that's still the case,
I still think that this team can get to 10 wins, right? Like, I think they'll beat the Giants. I know they'll beat the Texans at this point, so that's 2 wins, right? Like, I'm fairly confident that they'll be able to split with the Broncos. At Raiders, maybe.
I mean, are they capable? Are they capable of it, and will they do it? Are two different things to me. Like, yeah, I think they can beat the Chiefs. I think they can beat the Broncos. I think they can beat the Raiders. Right now, they're not playing like a team that can beat any of those teams at this point. And like, as much as we talk smack on the Broncos, haha, you're flexing them at a prime time, and they're stupid. Like, they just beat the shit out of us today, and they didn't even play good. Yeah. So, like, what are we talking about at this point?
So if you have them as 9-8, that means that they would be going 3-3 for the rest of the way with the 6 games left.
I mean, that's what I'm seeing from this team. If you're telling me they have 2 relatively simple wins against the Giants and Texans, probably win 1 more divisional game. I mean, you could argue 2 divisional games, which probably gets you to that 10 wins, but right now, like, I don't see how anyone could have true confidence that they're definitely going to win a game outside of those Giants and Texans games.
I think the Raiders might be a bit of I think at that point, like if 2 more players get arrested or whatever, I think they'll be all right.
I mean, they could have the whole offensive line arrested, and they'll probably still find a way to stop Jerry Tillery.
Well, there's that. Although Jerry Tillery did have a good game against the Raiders, I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true.
This team.
I still think they'll get to 10 and I think they'll get to 10-9 or 10-8. That would be
10-7.
God, I hate this.
I think it's possible because I think it's so annoying. Like Alex said, do it versus can they actually do it or will they do it? Like, it's there. Like, the stuff on offense is there, and you can, like, even in the Vikings game or the Patriots game, you can see like just throw it to there, or just catch that ball, or Jared Cook. How often is Jared Cook going to run this way and Herbert throws that way for a pick six to lose them the game? But it just keeps happening too. Something just keeps happening.
Like it
So
just
it's
goes
like-
back. It goes back to the execution thing that we've talked about, and every week on this podcast we've been like, "Well, I think this is the week it gets fixed," and then it doesn't get fucking fixed. Like, yeah, I mean, they beat Pittsburgh and they beat Philly, but like the issues that they had in a lot of those games weren't fixed, right? Like, I mean, they still had a lot of problems, particularly with Philly with run defense, with Pittsburgh with their secondary. So, I mean, as much as we want to talk about like this is the week that they stop dropping balls, this is the week that they, start to Herbert really turns it around and he goes on, some 6-game tear where he goes crazy. I'd love to see it. But overwhelmingly we have bad Herbert performances over the last month. We have relatively poor offensive performances from most of the team over the last month, except probably Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. And the defense is in shambles right now due to injuries and COVID and the fact that some of their personnel that the last regime drafted wasn't very good. So, like, I mean, I think they can get to 4-2 in these last 6. I think they can get to 5-1. In theory, they can be a 6-0 team in these last 6 games. But what I'm seeing in these last 5-6 games is that I don't have any confidence in this last 6-game stretch.
No, I think that's totally fair. And I think, man, it's just, I think one of the things that this team needs to do is really like, not like completely get away from Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, right? But like, if it feels like anytime things are going bad, it's like, okay, here's 17 Keenan Allen targets. Here's 15 Austin Eckler targets. It's like, we look at when this team is at its best, it's spread the ball around. Donald Parham, 3 or 4 targets. Jared Cook, 3 or 4 targets. Steven Anderson, 1 or 2 targets. Mike Williams gets involved. Like this team, I feel like the default is just to hyper target Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And like, that's fun. Like those two are, they're the best players on the offense outside of, the best 2 skill players on the offense, I should say. But I think they just need to do a better job of taking pressure off of those 2 and taking pressures off of Justin Herbert and be able to continue to spread the ball around. And I think today that was like, I don't think Donald Parham even had 1 target.
Yeah, I don't know. Regardless, the lack of involvement for Steven Anderson is strange because I don't understand why you wouldn't get him more involved than he has. That to me is more of a criticism than any other player that's not getting involved right now.
Yeah. So obviously a frustrating time to be a Chargers fan. We wish that this team were a little bit more consistent and, they have 6 more games left, which is just crazy to think about. But, we will be covering every second of the rest of the Chargers season. Hopefully you guys are with us. And thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for us. Alex, Tyler, thanks for joining me as always. And we'll see you guys next time.